Aston Martin has decided it's time to bring in something new to fix their team, or at least that's what it seems like, when in reality all they have to do is drop about 80 kilos of dead weight. Unfortunately, Stroll is going nowhere. Welcome to the Blatantly Biased Racing Podcast.
Welcome to the Blatantly Biased Racing Podcast. Now here's a bald guy and some Indian.
Hey, man.
From personal experience, Lance doesn't like being called deadweight. So,
Oh, really?
yeah,
I thought he'd love that. I thought it was a tennis term. Anyway.
yeah. He specifically doesn't like being called deadweight. I've been told.
Okay.
From close quarters, apparently.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think anyone does, but, you know, in this case, it's accurate.
Yeah. I mean, if the shoe fits. Yep. How are you?
Good. Ready to get back to some F1, and kind of a bit sad though that this is going to be another, like, we basically have a summer down period after this.
Yeah. Four race weekends without F1. By the way, if you are not watching F1 and there's nothing going on, there's always MotoGP.
I really need to start watching.
You should have seen the race.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that much fun yesterday.
Is there races during the 4 weeks? Yeah.
Yeah, there will be.
Well, then there we go.
I keep pinging you and telling you to watch the race. You don't.
No, I really need to. Yeah.
Yeah, we will. Okay, let's talk about Jonathan Wheatley to Aston Martin. First thoughts. What came to your mind?
I mean, first thoughts were initially like, oh God, more of a mess. But then as I kind of went into it, I was like, okay, not the worst idea from Aston Martin's point of view. And also, I think it was the guys from the race who pointed this out perfectly, because this whole mess is also just a massive failure in PR from Aston Martin as well, because essentially Aston straight away made it like this is a definitive, Newey's here to stay or whatever. And then a week later, the reason I just in my head, because I was wondering, why did I have it in my head that Newey always said this is temporary and that he was going to step back from this at some point? Yeah, I was going to say, because a week after they made the announcement, Newey literally said, yeah, well, I'm going to be at the races anyway, so I'll just step in while we're looking for someone. But Aston was adamant, like, no, this is our team principle. So a huge failure, because if they had us just said, Newey as our interim CEO or team principal, he's going to look after this while we find someone, then right now I would be saying, oh, that's a huge win for Aston to bring over Jonathan Wheatley. Great hire. Yeah. But that's a huge win. But now it just looks like a mess because their framing of everything's been so poor. So you would
they
think
made it even worse, by the way.
Yeah, they've made it way worse. But anyway, I'm assuming.
You saw how they made it worse. Now, as soon as Wheatley's departure was announced, Lawrence Stroll came in and said, Adrian Newey is still going to be our technical whatever and team principal. Like, why are you doing this?
I don't really see the point. Where this is going,
There's no point, and there's the problem is that they've spent too much time on messaging all these things instead of getting to work, which is where the focus needs to be. And okay, so my view, by the way, as soon as the Wheatley to Aston Martin thing was announced, first of all, I was surprised because the job that he's doing at Audi is pretty impressive, and I thought that's going to be a long-term thing. But if you look at it from Wheatley's perspective as well, and first time it struck me was during the DTS episode, if you remember. This was the first time when Wheatley's wife was also featured to a certain extent during one of the episodes.
Yeah.
And it seems both of them are pretty advanced in age, old, for the lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And and that kind of family. So it struck me then that at this advanced age, Wheatley and his wife, they've moved from their home in UK to Switzerland.
Because he's 50.
It's a bit of a move. Yeah, it's a big move, isn't it?
Yeah, you're getting towards retirement age in any other job, basically.
Yeah, and and that's what I thought, that okay, maybe it's a bit too late for such a move. That was what I thought. It's going to be a bit hard for them. From that perspective, it made sense to me already. And then the thing with Binotto came out that apparently the two aren't working well together, which was again a surprise. But again, both of these things make sense. Secondly, I think I've always maintained, and I've maintained it here as well, I think Adrian Newey as a team principal is the wrong role for him to be in. It's not optimal. He should be 100% focused on the car, and that's where he needs to be. There needs to be someone as a de facto team principal, some person. I've been pretty much shouting from the rooftops about this, and if Wheatley is the person that's going to join, brilliant. I think they couldn't have gotten anyone better. I don't think they couldn't have gotten.
If
maybe
they've gotten them.
Whatever I've heard, they have.
Yeah,
so
we're all
I think
assuming.
it's almost exactly. It's almost done. They'll probably call him something else because now they've termed Newey as the whole whatever it is. So either ways, he'll be your de facto team principal, and I think on that front, a good call overall. That's just my initial thing.
I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if he ends up being CEO and Newey keeps the team principal moniker just so that Lawrence Stroll doesn't look stupid. I genuinely would not put that past Aston Martin at this point.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
I'm not sure who said this, or was it reported, or was it an official statement from Aston Martin that Newey will continue to be the supreme leader, which is probably the worst usage of words. And
welcome our new Ayatollah. Adrian Khomeini. Yeah, good idea.
I have no idea why they use the word supreme leader for him, but
I mean they're owned a good bit by one of the largest Muslim states, so maybe
you know. Yeah, I don't know, but the point is
a show of solidarity with Iran for some reason. I don't know, like what.
I doubt that. Yeah, no more war references. So
don't mention the war.
Yep. So while this is going on, I think for me there are two questions. Probably one another positive that I think a lot of people have missed on. When Wheatley was at Red Bull, he was one of the key people that were in correspondence with Honda. And I think with him joining Aston Martin, first of all, we don't know when he will. We don't know how long a gardening leave it is going to be. But if he is joining Aston Martin, he's probably going to be one of the cooler heads that's going to ultimately correspond with Honda. And I think he would be the perfect person to be the bridge between the chassis side of things and the power unit. Because I think they missed this particular aspect because of how everything just went to hell.
The perfect person would be Andy Kell, but they dropped the ball there. So
now comes the question. If Newey in his new role, let's get it straight. Here in Aston Martin, he's at a higher hierarchy than what he was at Red Bull, right?
Yeah.
He was unable to work with Andy Cowell.
Yeah.
And with the way Lawrence Stroll has gone ahead with the whole thing that Newey will continue to be this and that. If Wheatley joins in, and if Wheatley and Newey don't work together, what's next?
Yeah, I mean, look, the one thing I would assume is that they will, because I think this has been a very maybe Newey led, or like Newey pushing for him specifically because he knows he can work with him. He worked with him for years, and I think Wheatley would be the type of guy who would come in knowing that, like, okay, basically we're having a separation of church and state here. Like, I'm team principal or CEO, and the religion of Newey will deal with the car, basically, and like I don't get any say in any of that, basically. I think that will work, but if it doesn't work, then I don't really know what other options they'd have, because like who else will work? Like, that's kind of one of those people that you put in that, like, if this doesn't work, who's it going to work with? So I'm not sure. I think this needs to work, realistically. Otherwise, I think there's a serious issue here.
Okay, now answer me another thing. Do you think this is the last roll of the dice for Lawrence? Because where he is right now, and let's take things into perspective. He picked up Aston Martin or Force India mid 2018. That's the time when he picked the whole thing up.
Pounds.
Yeah, something on those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he has invested close to $1 billion in the facility.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. Although he's a clever businessman,
not his money.
Most of it's not his money. Yeah.
So there has been a lot of investment in the project. But if you look at the last 4 or 5 years, in 2013 they were 4th or 5th in the championship. Since then they've regressed every season. And this season, unless they improve significantly during the year, they are probably going to be 8, 9, 10, 11. That's where they're going to finish.
Yeah, I mean, they could improve 50% almost immediately, right? But they just don't want to.
How? Okay. Yeah. Fair point. I do not disagree. But yeah, we are probably never getting Lance on this podcast in that case.
I don't want him on the podcast. Have you seen his interviews? They're dull as fuck. I don't care.
Yeah, true.
I don't want to sit there. It's because the car was, if the car got better, I can just do Lance on this podcast if you want. It won't be that difficult.
Yeah. I mean, out of every person that has the right to complain about Honda and where the Aston Martin project is, Lance is the last one. You fucking own the whole thing. So yeah. Anyways, coming back to it.
But yeah, is it the last roll of the dice?
Yeah, because look, there has been a long time where a lot of backers, investors, everyone has put a lot of faith in Lawrence. Again, he has the background, so makes sense. But now we are at a point where things have not improved for 4 or 5 years. If this current iteration, if this doesn't improve things, that's when the backers will start questioning things, that what's going on. And
I think in terms of performance, the problem's going to, I think if it's a case of Wheatley comes in and everything works and it's like maybe it takes longer to get the performance up, but it starts going on the right trajectory, I think he's fine, right? And the main reason I think he's fine is because even with the money he's invested, the return on investment for his backers is already like 3-fold, 4-fold anyway, right? So I think he could hold them off, in just that side. But yes, I think if it's a case of like Wheatley comes in, Wheatley and Newey don't work together, things keep going wrong and the trajectory is still downward, then I think, yes, that's the problem. I think as long as Wheatley and Newey get along and the trajectory goes up, then we're fine here. Like, I think Lawrence is fine. But I think if it's a downward trajectory, it's going to just be tough to sell it any further then. So yeah, I think it's the last roll of the dice in terms of like big management changes, because you can only keep changing management for so long, and if Wheatley and Newey isn't working, it's pretty hard to sell anyone else as better other than Horner. That's it. The only other person you could bring in that you could say, right, this is a big step up on what we've got, is swapping Wheatley out for Horner. That's it. And I just don't think that's happening. So
yeah, but even if that happens, you'll have to wait for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah,
that's also the problem.
The thing is, regardless, even if Wheatley comes in, you're waiting 2 or 3 years, right? I think it was naive.
100%.
I think the thing is, it wasn't naive to think Newey could build a really good chassis, because I think even some of the track data we've seen, I think there is good performance in that chassis if it was unlocked.
It's decent, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, look, even if it was 6th fastest compared to where they were with the whole new team, I think that puts them on a good stead to move up quickly. But it was really naive to think that Honda would be, at the very least, or at the very best, any better than Audi, for example. To assume that Honda could beat anyone more than Audi in the first year was naive. And even them beating Audi would be a challenge given where they started. And I think for anyone to think otherwise was just naive, especially because they had more info than we did. And from our point, it looked pretty tough,
Yeah. For me, beating Audi was not really...
So I'm naive, just to point that out.
Yeah. I think they could have. I think beating Audi was something I would have expected. For me, the concerns come in when Honda comes out and reveals that Adrian Newey joined the project, and as soon as he did, he listed a certain set of demands that had to be complied with, and that kind of fucked things up for them. I think if the intervention had not come from Newey, I think that's where... Honda is not a team. Honda as a power unit supplier, they can do brilliant stuff, and they have shown that they can. Yeah. But they were also shown that they need to be left alone to do their thing. And maybe that's where things have not worked out. And I think I'm slightly optimistic that with Wheatley in place, first of all, he'll get the temperatures down, which is important. Yeah. And slowly, and I think, look, we've said it far too many times now. The ingredients are there. They're not in the right mix. The mix is not currently working. So having someone like Wheatley who can just calm things down and just focus on incremental improvement, things will improve. It's not going to improve if they come into every weekend and have this deadline in place that this weekend this has to happen, next weekend this has to happen. It doesn't work like that in Formula One. And I think if that approach is going to stay, that's going to be the detriment for them. So let's see what they do.
They do need to be careful. Sorry, I was just checking the exact year there, but there is another thing they need to be careful on, which is Honda pull out of the sport whenever things come to recession or whatever. And Honda lost last year. Was Honda's first loss as a company since Eisenhower was president. Literally 1957 was the last time they lost money. So this is also a pretty bad time for Aston to be like, hey, we need you to pump more money into this. Not that they can pump much more because of the because of the cost cap, right? But
that all is fine. It's been a bit nonsensical the way the whole thing has been portrayed. I think Honda will be fine. Look, with the cost cap in place, 100 million is nothing. They already put 80. Yeah, they already put 80 something in the bike, the MotoGP project.
Yeah,
which is also I think where Honda has struggled in the last few years is, first of all, their move towards electric has not been as efficient as it should have been. That's where the kind of portfolio they wanted to put out, they have
a big company, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why build your dreams, isn't it?
Every big company except the ones who started as electric companies basically is finding it.
Yeah, pretty much. The transition has been tough, and that's where Honda...
Ford wrote down like 20 billion last year or something, which is insane from just
the
EV side. Yeah, I think in total the three manufacturers in America alone wrote down like 70 billion in write-offs.
Yeah, that I know.
Like it's insane. Yeah, so maybe we should just go back to V8s, eh?
Not happening. Sadly, not happening anymore. Yeah. Anyways, coming back to it, I think for now, look, I don't think finances are going to be a concern for any of the participants, especially with the way they've controlled the costs. So that's fine. It's just that we need to now slowly start focusing on maybe being patient. I think this is the first thing. They need to start being patient. And again, if it means they need to sit down and have a conversation with Alonso, maybe it's good that they can. But if you're impatient and every weekend you're coming in and saying this is a disaster, of course, everyone knows it is a disaster. Everyone expects it to be a disaster. The point is how you can grow from this. And if I think Japan is going to be the biggest example for that. If it ends up being another case of GP2 engine or whatever nonsense, then you can just forget about the partnership continuing. But let's see. I think when Wheatley joins is going to be the important thing. We don't really know that yet.
I think it's probably going to be later, right? Like, I don't think it's going to be...
Ideally, it should be later because the gardening leave and everything.
Yeah, but I would imagine it's
immediate.
27. Like, I don't know if it's going to be before. Like, hopefully 6 months, but I don't think it's going to be immediate. That's definitely not the case, I don't think.
He's been removed with immediate effect. It's not really he has resigned. So whatever rumors have come out is, and again, it might be wrong, but the rumors or the reports that have come out is the Audi CEO, I'm forgetting his name, he was quite angry at Wheatley because he had a few conversations outside of Audi, and then the whole thing meant that it was done with immediate effect.
But I wonder
now,
though,
whether
does
that means
mean, I was just going to say, like, does that mean
exactly whether that means that the gardening leave would be there or not, we have to see. Ideally, it should be, but
you would assume if he's angry, he's going to enforce the full 12 months, right? You know.
Yeah. 100%.
Didn't Red Bull do that with Rob Marshall, which I think they enforced?
They did with Dan Fallows is the one I remember. I don't remember.
That's the one. No. Yeah, Dan Fallows.
Rob Marshall was 6 months. I remember.
Okay. You think they would have enforced it on Rob Marshall knowing that he's basically the new Adrian Newey, but sure. Yes.
He's not the new Adrian Newey. He has always been the Adrian Newey.
Yeah. That's why Red Bull fell apart. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the whole reason. By the way, talking about Audi now, what does it mean for them? Because they've been on a decent upward trajectory since last year when Hülkenberg and Bortoleto came over and then Wheatley joined the team. Then you had Binotto. They started scoring points. The chassis improved. This year, again, it's been decent compared to where I expected the Audi package to be. I think they're fine. They scored points in one race. They could have scored in the other one. So they are okay. What does it mean that they've lost one of the key guys and that Wheatley and Binotto were not getting along?
I personally, look, I think in the short term, it's not going to damage them too much. And the reason I say that is just, I think like Wheatley and Binotto both have run or have been at the very top nearly for Wheatley of like, championship fighting teams, right? But when it comes to like getting...
you're stretching it too far with Binotto.
This is where I'm getting to though. When it comes to getting to the top, only one of those guys was at a team that knows how to win a championship. So, and they've just lost that one. So I think like building up, I think Mattia Binotto is actually the perfect guy you want for like the synergy between the engine, the car, like the actual technical side. Binotto's probably more important in that than Wheatley is in terms of like developing the car. But when it comes to like the on-track performance and extracting the most from that car that you can get, Wheatley was great for that. And I think like this goes back to what I said about Ferrari years ago. When they brought Fred Vasseur in, I was like, oh, if you could keep Mattia and Fred Vasseur together, you would have almost the ideal role because you'd have a guy who knows how to get the technical side done and then a guy who's very good at dealing with on-track stuff and politics. And they had both, I feel, here. And they've thrown one away now, or one left anyway. So I think it's not going to hit them straight away. I think 3 years down the line, it'll be the problem,
Yeah, I think for now, what's going to happen is that they're essentially... So for Audi, the reality of the situation is their only problem currently is that the infrastructure is not up to par. And for them, the focus and the work is going to be around that specifically. So once they continue to grow that, until that point, they can have Binotto in place who's going to help you with at least the foundational bit. But when it comes to fighting for the championships and winning them, you need someone more cutthroat and someone more experienced. And I think Wheatley would have been the perfect asset. If he's not there, it's a bit like crossing the bridge when you get to it. Yeah. Until then, they are fine. They are not really in a position where they have to think too much. There's one area where they have to worry about though, and it is the fact that they are based in Hinwil in Switzerland, and it's become very hard for them to extract talent in that particular region.
Yeah.
And that's why
which is kind of odd as well, because it's a beautiful part of Switzerland as well. It's a beautiful country. I think it's just I guess it's just not near anything else,
Yeah, the thing is, it's not a... So what happens is, whatever little we've got to know, the entire region, the entire F1 region is basically situated in a very, very small part of Britain. People just pack up and move to another factory and pack up and move to another place. That's how things usually...
Easy. They don't need to change anything. Honestly, it's so close. Even if you're Aston Martin, like changing to Red Bull is literally just changing your drive in the morning. Like it's not,
Yeah.
But, and I guess Hinwil doesn't have the pull of a Maranello. Like if you get offered Maranello, like that's the culture, the lifestyle of Ferrari. That has a big pull for people. Whereas we're going to go to Switzerland. It's like, oh, the retirement home? No, I'm good. I get it.
So maybe what they can do is they can start hiring young people. I think that is one area where they can do, where they start having homegrown talent ultimately taking over.
It's probably
maybe that's something they could do.
If they're willing to go long term, that would be the best solution, to be honest.
Yeah. Or shift bases to England somehow.
Or, bring people there. I mean, Dignitas is based there, so you could bring people there for the last few years of their life. Anyone who gets that joke, probably.
I didn't.
I believe Dignitas is Swiss. I could be crazy, but Dignitas, I think, is the world's...
What biggest, is Dignitas?
It's the world's largest, what's you call it? Euthanasia company.
Oh, crap. Okay. Okay.
I think it's Dignitas. Or is that
Probably.
Czech Republic?
I have no idea.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure it's Dignitas. But yeah.
Yeah, that is one.
It's a Swiss non-profit organization providing physician-assisted things we can't talk about on this channel because YouTube doesn't allow you to say the word that begins with S. Anyway. Continue.
Okay. Yeah. Not like we monetize yet. So.
Subscribe.
Yeah. Please. Yeah, we didn't even say that at the start of the pod. Yeah. By the way, if you've reached 24 minutes into the podcast, hit subscribe. If you're still new to the channel, And if you're not new to the channel, you belong to 60-70% of the people who are not subscribed.
Yeah.
Hit subscribe. Yeah. Moving back. By the way, so there was one. So I had actually put a post in our community, and one of them actually asked this question: How likely is it that Horner becomes the person that takes over at Audi and replicates the model that Toto has put together in Mercedes?
Look, I genuinely think it would be a great decision. I think there's two things in the way. One is Mattia Binotto is not going to want that. Now, if you're asked, like, who do you want, Mattia or Horner, you're probably going to pick Horner, even though maybe in the short term, Mattia could bring more performance just based on who he is and his experience in terms of out of the car. But long term, you'd want Horner. I think the bigger issue is I just don't think Volkswagen and Audi are going to give a percentage to Horner. And I think that seems to be the sticking point for him at the minute. So I think it wouldn't be the worst decision for them to give him, like, even if it was 10-15%, just a proper stake in it. That doesn't really affect the long term, I don't know though. I just don't think they're going to. But I think it would be a good decision for them if they really wanted to be like, we're going to hit the front. But yeah, sure.
There's also the other thing that it's situated in Switzerland, and I don't think Horner is moving out of UK.
Probably not. Although, I mean, for them, I guess it wouldn't be the end of the world. But I think he does have relatively young kids still, right? They're teenagers, so
it's not even that. I think he has some links within he is something of the British Empire as well, right?
Oh, yeah, he's
OBMB, whatever nonsense is that.
He's not knighted, is he? He's like, I think it's...
No, he's not knighted.
I think it's...
He's something. Yeah, whatever.
I'll tell you
but
right now.
Some recognition.
Yeah.
So I do think...
when I'm going to get mine, but anyway.
Yeah. I don't think I want it. They can shove it. So...
yeah, I can't find it, but I think it's CBE anyway.
Okay, moving on. Let's talk about then. Okay, so one post I did, and it pissed off a lot of George Russell fans, which is new. Oh, by the way, Franco Colapinto fans, they got pissed, and they they had a lot of things to say once again. So thanks to them as well. Keep an eye out for the next driver ratings. Yeah. Okay, so I posted that I think, at least in my view, it does appear that George Russell and Mercedes, this partnership, it seems to be one that's going to be short-term, not a long-term partnership, at least from 2026 onwards, because there are two scenarios which seem to be developing. The first is Kimi Antonelli, where he is right now. He's 18 or 19, and he's developing at a rate which is impressive and alarming if you are a Russell fan. Secondly, he will continue to improve as the season progresses. And as this happens, the team will slowly move more and more towards him for obvious reasons, because that's the youngster tends to attract more attention. We saw it with Red Bull when you had Daniel Ricciardo and Max.
Yeah.
If this continues, again, I expect something similar to happen here, and maybe there comes a point where George questions whether he's being treated as an equal to Kimi. We might see that happening, and that might lead to a departure. That is one scenario.
Yeah.
Second scenario is Max is at Red Bull. Things are not going well, and I doubt things are going to get much better, significantly better at Red Bull this season.
They're going to.
And if that is the trajectory that the team, Exactly. And if that is the trajectory that Red Bull is on, I think Max has two options. Either to stick it out with the team that is going to struggle and he hates the regulation set, or move to a team that is pretty much is the benchmark in F1. And even though he'll hate the regulations, at least he'll be winning.
Yeah. Or he can retire.
And I doubt he'll do that either. I really doubt that he's going to retire or take a sabbatical.
He went all in and cheated at Nuremberg, so I think...
Yeah, I mean, he changed the tires.
Nürburgring. Sorry, not Nuremberg. Those are two...
Oh, Jesus Christ, yeah. Yeah, you need to stop watching too much of World War II stuff.
It took my light. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I think what's going to happen is that there is a serious possibility that Max, by mid-season, his exit clause would be activated, and he gives a call to Toto that, okay, I'm willing to move to Mercedes. And Toto replaces George with Max. And ultimately, that's the partnership we have. What do you think?
Um,
I can
We know
understand George Russell fans being upset, by the way.
yeah. I mean, look, can we just first preface this by saying, like, I don't think George deserves to be replaced. I think he's done a good enough job that he should keep that seat.
100%.
Like, there's, if it was purely based on performance, you would just keep George. Like, if you had to replace one of them this season, you'd replace Antonelli. But Antonelli, as you've pointed out correctly, has a lot of potential. We still don't know, will he end up being better than George? It's the same thing with the Piastri-Norris thing, right? Where you're just like, look how quick he's building. And then you're like, yeah, but he can tail off at some point. And like there's always that conversation.
Yes.
The assumption is Kimi will just get better than George. But George was also that kid years ago as well, if we all remember.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately in Formula One, it's not that simple. And when you've got Kimi in the car, even if Kimi just starts winning races and going back and forth with George like they have for the first two, I know there's a lot of caveats there. Any George people watching who'll be shouting at the screen like, oh, that's because George had There's always caveats. But the point is, even if Antonelli can get to a point where he can just win races here and there, then you could say, right, well, we can train Kimi up. And then we've got Max, who is just as good, if not better, than George Russell to come in and replace him. Max is the best person on the grid still. I think everyone agrees on that. So
Other than George Russell fans.
Other than George Russell fans. And look, I think, honestly, we need to see the two of them fight. I think George is a lot better than people give him credit for. Like...
Yeah,
there may
George
be
is a
areas
lot better than people give him credit for, but he's not Max.
No, but there may be areas where George is actually better than Max. Like, we haven't seen the two of them in title-winning cars. We don't know. Like years ago, we would have said Max is too aggressive, not calculated enough over a season, all these things. He's proven a lot of people wrong there. Also, he's taken out George and lost the title. But anyway. So... the point is, there are probably areas where George does succeed over Max and areas where Max succeeds over George. I just think there's more areas where Max succeeds over George, would be my assumption. What was the point I was making? Oh, yeah. I think the problem is this is F1. And like, even if George wins the title this year, if you have the option to bring in a Max Verstappen over a George Russell, it makes sense. And the pragmatic decision would be bring in George and Max. But they're not going to do that for the reasons you've just mentioned as well, and that we've just talked about with Antonelli and the marketing going forward and everything. So yeah, I could see it happening. The only thing I will say is I'm pretty sure they've got a provisional inked thing of like what it would take to make that happen. Like Toto and Max have an actual like provisional inked contract of like, this is what would happen if we sign this for 2027. So it's almost like super easy for them to get that over the line when Max isn't second in the championship by June, because Red Bull's just not going to be. I'm sorry, people. I'm kind of cooling on it a little bit though. And I think the reason I'm cooling on it is I think, and it's not for the conspiracy theory that we talked about before, but I think it's because Toto might start cooling on that decision of going all in on Kimi. And if he's going all in on Kimi, I actually think he might think to himself, bringing in Max here may actually be a poor decision if that's my long-term goal.
Yeah.
Because if I bring Max in, then he's going to basically push for everything to come to his side of the garage. And there's going to be riots if that's not done. Whereas George is more the guy who will be like, I'll win on performance anyway. I don't need your help. And he'll have that attitude. So actually keeping George there makes more sense for Kimi's long-term push. So I'm starting to think that Toto might have a better, like more of a push towards, especially after like Max's side basically pushed to a point where Horner's now gone, Helmut's now gone. Even if that's not Max directly, Max is in the center of that whole situation, and Toto might think, why am I bringing in more problems when I don't need to? So I'm not sure it'll happen now, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the pragmatic point of view, I think we, if you remember, we had these discussions even last year as well, where
lots of them, yeah.
Yeah, and both of us had the same view that George was being treated poorly by Toto when it comes to the contract extension delays or every other thing associated with it.
Yeah.
But what I realized ultimately is that it doesn't matter what we think. Ultimately, the call comes down to Toto, and he seems to be enamored with Max to a large extent.
Yeah.
And he has continued to have that kind of relationship with him. He never speaks ill of him in any which way. And that is a bit of a sign of things where you know that, okay, this is one person he either has in the bank or he is earmarked for the future.
Yeah.
While that is happening, I think, okay, let's put it this way. Kimi Antonelli, he has been competitive against George. What that means is he's been roughly around 2 to 3 tenths off. It's not really, he's not been the faster driver, he's been 2 to 3 tenths off. And where he is in his career, he's only going to progress. And let's assume, and I think Toto would have also done the game theory here. Let's assume Toto passes off the opportunity to sign Max. For some reason, he goes for stability. He goes for the more pragmatic approach that, okay, we have probably one of the top 3 best drivers on the grid in George. That is one. And we have a budding talent that might in future end up overtaking the driver that we have as a leader. And George would be a good mentor for the youngster. Fine, this is the approach he takes. But at the same time, in his mind, he would also have something going on where he thinks that, okay, until I have the fastest car, I don't have a headache. But there's going to come a point where teams are going to catch up. And there's going to come a point when Max Verstappen is in one of those cars. And if you have Max Verstappen within reach in a slower car, and you have either George or Kimi in the fastest car, that's going to be a battle. And that's a battle that he might potentially lose. So it's probably better to pick if the best driver is available and he's willing to sign with you, it's probably better to have him on your side than be his rival.
Yeah, you're taking the opponent's chess piece off the board, basically. Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
There is that. I think that's why it's probably good for him to have until kind of June to see how this plays out, because that's going to tell him like where the other pieces are going to be. And like if it looks like Ferrari is going to be the main competition throughout this generation of cars,
let me tell you, it's going to be McLaren.
It's going to be McLaren, yeah. But if it's going to be either of those teams, you might be able to say to yourself, okay, well then we're good for now, because if Ferrari is doing well, I think they can hang on to Leclerc, and they're probably bringing Behrman up, for example. And I'm not sure how much Max wants to go to Ferrari after watching them for so long. If Max is smart, he probably doesn't go to Ferrari.
No, he'd rather retire.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then McLaren, I just don't think fits for Max. I don't think it's going to work for Max, because McLaren will have to basically throw out its entire thing of what it wanted to do with having 2 number 1 drivers.
Don't you think they will?
I think Zach Brown is dead set on that. And I think until Zach Brown goes, I think
Zach Brown reached out to Max last season before he signed an extension with Oscar Piastri.
Yeah. But I think you do that pragmatically.
Max priced him out.
Yeah. And I think you do that pragmatically anyway, right? But I think now that you've got...
You think so? Even after last year, where essentially Lando and Oscar would have lost the championship if Horner was still the team boss at Red Bull.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe Zach does go for it. The question is, does Max play ball in that camp? Because if Zach basically says we're having 2 number 1s, I'll sign you and we'll pay the money, but we're having 2 number 1s. Like, that is my sticking point on this. Because for Zach, the 2 number 1s seems to be ideological. Like, he loved McLaren because the whole McLaren thing was to have 2 number 1s.
It's not necessarily there. You can look at the way he's operating the IndyCar team. There's a
with the Formula 1 team, that was because Zach has repeatedly said that, the DNA of this team is that it's always had 2 number 1s, and that's what we want to keep it as. And I guess he's kind of right. Like, if you go way back, like McLaren's always had, like, even was it Prost and Senna, like, if you go back that far, like, they've always had
Alonso Lewis.
Yeah, it's just been a part of until they got to the point where no number 1s would come to that team. Actually,
that is one thing.
Had that
I
point,
agree.
Didn't they, when they had Jensen and Hamilton? There was no number 1s then.
True.
There was no number 2s then either. It was just number 3 drivers. Anyway.
Yeah. I agree with you.
The point is, where could Max go is the point. And if Toto gets to a point where he realizes that Max can't go to any of the competition, that removes that risk, basically.
I also want to expand the conversation a bit and include McLaren into it, because if you're Zach Brown, what was one of the biggest key takeaways for you at the end of 2025?
Having 2 number ones is a pain in the ass. That's
Basically, it was like, phew, that was close. That almost slipped away. And again, there were reports last season as well that Zach or McLaren essentially was talking with Leclerc for a potential move. So I won't be surprised if Zach tries to bring either Leclerc or Max on board.
the thing though is we have to say that like these teams always have these conversations with top drivers, right? Top drivers and top teams always talk. So it's hard to know like what that actually means, you know, like that could just be a one and done conversation of like, okay, well, if I come here, I want preferential treatment, and McLaren says we don't.
Yeah, in that
here,
case, there's not really anything going to happen.
So it could be like we had talks, but the talks were nothing. You know, like every manager like it's the job of just the main reason I bring this up. You already know this, but just for anyone who's a newer fan watching, like you will hear these talks all the time. The question is how detailed they are, because every manager does a job of speaking with most of the teams, basically. There might be teams like Max's manager is probably not going to waste his time talking to Haas, but he's going to talk to every other top team. You know, like they're going to do that. So, just
okay, so tell me this scenario. Let's assume Max was last year, McLaren has the fastest car, and the driver lineup is Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. After 6 races, what do you expect the
Lando's winning the championship easily, right?
Yeah. On a serious note, how do you see it going?
Max is destroying that championship.
Exactly. So if Max is exactly my point, if Max is destroying the championship, then having a number 1 or number 2 dynamic, does it even matter?
No, it doesn't. But the problem with that is, if Jos is around, it still matters. Because if there's, the point is though, if there's one weekend where, because look, the thing is, Lando is, in my opinion, just as fast as Max. It's just everywhere else where he falls apart, right? But there is a
what a way to put it together.
Yeah, but like there is weekends where Lando's just in his groove, and from moment one, he's hard for anyone to beat, right? Regardless, like Lando's a talent for a reason, and he gets a lot of stick, but he is a proper F1 talent. He's a world champion now, right? Like you don't get there by mistake. You have to do certain things. And there's going to be certain weekends, even when Lando and Max are together, that Lando, especially at McLaren, a team that he's been with for so long in 2025, where Lando's just going to beat Max. He's just going to.
100%.
And, you know, it's those weekends where it becomes a problem, because for any other driver, you know, it's just all right, I'm winning most of the time. Well done, Lando, but I'll beat you over at the championship. For Verstappen's management and his father, that's why the fuck was he allowed to get that strategy? Why did this? And you get internal chaos. And we saw it at Red Bull, you know?
Yeah.
Like the moment Checo won any races, Jos was in going, why is this happening? Like, why isn't he there? It was 2 races, and all of a sudden, it was like, we need to destroy Checo.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I just don't think that works However, I will say one last thing on that. It does look like Jos has been kind of quietly moved aside by Max.
He's now focusing more on the driving bit. I mean, he's doing the whole rallying stuff, which is honestly too like dangerous for his age.
Said like,
please
go away a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
A lot of things have changed, right? His inner circle doesn't have either of the two. I don't think even Marco is gone. Jos is gone. So yeah, let's see what happens again. But this is going to be a developing story for sure. And I think if it starts catching steam by, let's say, Miami, Monaco, Barcelona, so somewhere around that time, if it starts catching fire around Barcelona or something, or probably Canada is the best one, by that time, if we see things happen, that would be the point when you start having conversation that, okay, maybe things are moving in certain direction.
I think this year is going to be one of those huge, silly seasons though, right? Because but it's also probably going to be a strange one of, you'll get a couple of people moving earlier in the season, and then you'll get a big batch of it in June or July.
Yeah. Because
most of the grid's contracts, I believe, most are up this season. Yeah. So I think a lot of the teams are going to be waiting for, let's see where Max goes, because like if you're an Audi or an Aston, you have no chance of getting anyone right now. But if, for example, Piastri and Norris continue their contracts, Leclerc and Hamilton continue their contracts, and Max does go to Mercedes, you could have a situation where an Audi or Aston may look like the only option that has any chance of getting to the front of the grid for a likes of Russell, for example. You know, like, so I think we'll have one of those silly seasons where those teams might hold out thinking we could stumble upon a very big signing here if we just play the game, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be one of those seasons, you know?
You're right. There's going to be a lot of things at stake as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
One final question on it.
Yeah.
If Max does leave Red Bull, who goes there? Because I feel like
who goes to
going
Red Bull?
to Aston because going to Aston sounds crazy, but you could kind of understand the thinking. Like, this is a team with a lot of low-hanging fruit, and if they just sort their shit out, they could pole vault up. But if Max leaves Red Bull, that's kind of a sign of a sinking ship, and it already looks like it's on a kind of downward trajectory anyway. So I wonder who takes that risk. You know, like, that's...
Lindblad is the one they'll promote, I guess. But
so you don't think it'll be like a big signing going over there? As in, like, an already, you know what I mean? Like a Leclerc or Russell, you know, a Piastri, whatever.
The problem is, I think, again, this is just coming from my side, there are still far too many questions around the powertrain. Mm-hmm. That is one thing. I personally don't have too many questions around the chassis side. Now, again, the Verstappen fans have lost the shit on Pierre Vacher, which is, they keep doing that since 2024, even though he keeps fucking winning with that same car.
They need someone to win. Like,
exactly.
And they can't blame Horner anymore, so...
Yeah, so now it's Vacher. Next time it will be someone else. Maybe
instead of everyone except Jos Verstappen, for example.
Yeah, which is basically... yeah. So I think for Red Bull, the concern is not the chassis side. They'll get their... They will be fine. They are probably struggling right now, but the upgrades will come and they'll be fine. The concern is that this power unit, it is built by a very inexperienced unit. And I think at some point, maybe we are already seeing it catch up with them, because China was an example of it. And
reliability was always going to be an issue, right?
Even the you can, what should we call it? The peak power is not necessarily as good as it should be. So overall, it is decent. It is not fighting for the championship. That is one way I put it.
I think they did an amazing job by being like probably like third best at points, second best at other points in terms of just pure performance. Like, that's an incredible job. But you can't, like, there's going to be downsides. You're competing against guys who've been making Formula One engines for decades. There's going to be downsides. I'm more worried about the chassis though, for one reason, which is I really think that the chassis team it's on the verge of being absolutely decimated, in my opinion, because I think two things are going to happen. One, if Verstappen even considers leaving for somewhere else, someone's head is going to be on the chopping block, because that's what the board will do. And I think that will be Vacher, which will be it's an awful decision if they do that.
He'll go to Ferrari in that case.
Yeah, but like, if they remove Vacher, if Vacher leaves himself, that's one thing. But if Red Bull removes Vacher, that's an awful decision by them, first of all. And the second thing they're going to have to worry about is, I think we've talked about it repeatedly before,
Horner.
The moment Horner inks a deal, that team is just going to start getting gutted by Horner. He's going to take all the best people out of that team. And they'll leave. Like, they'll just leave, because what the board has done is basically destroyed the team in terms of its identity, because all the people who ran that team before are gone, and you can't just replace all the top management without completely replacing the culture. You know,
the culture is gone now,
unless you've got a gay Ayatollah to come in underneath, but that doesn't. Moving on.
Yeah. Moving on. Let's talk about McLaren then now. So a lot of people are writing off McLaren already. How do you picture them? Because again, by the way, they've had probably the worst start possible any team could have.
Start since
they had,
I think since 2018, something like that.
For McLaren, I'm talking about the worst start for a reigning world champions, because that is how poor it has been.
For McLaren,
Yeah, even that is bad. So they had one DNS in the first race, which was Australia, where Oscar had the issue. In the second race, they had 2 DNSs, so none of them even took part in a race.
Yeah.
Oscar, by the way, shared a post on Instagram, which was essentially watching the first couple of races, and it's him just sitting there and watching the screen for the first 2 races. That's what it's been for him. So again, there are some issues when it comes to reliability and stuff, but I do think in due time these things can be solved. For me, at least when it comes to the pace and performance, they are, according to Andreas Stella, they were 6 tenths behind the benchmark in qualifying. And it was essentially 2 tenths was down to the power unit, and the 4 tenths were down to the chassis being worse off. And when it comes to chassis, I always revert to what Rob Marshall said at the car launch. They brought pretty much an advanced package or whatever it was going to be in Barcelona. And since Barcelona, there's been, first of all, the entire Barcelona shakedown, the first Bahrain test, the second Bahrain test, the first 2 races. They've not brought a single part on the car.
Yeah.
And their view was that we are going to wait. We are going to first extract whatever is possible from this package and then ultimately bring an upgrade package in Miami.
Yeah.
Which is just somewhat similar to what happened in 2024, but that was more a case of a delays in production.
It was also they had changed philosophy at the end of 2023, right? So
Yeah. In terms of the rear suspension, which ultimately helped them have better tire life in the future.
Yeah.
So that's where they stand right now. And for me, the approach seems to be fine. If they're 4 tenths behind right now with a highly underdeveloped car, and they have, in fairness, they will have a larger scope to develop because they've not really used their wind tunnel time compared to a Mercedes or others. So they will close that gap eventually. And once they start doing that, once the upgrade comes in and also the power unit gap also reduces, the more understanding you have, the better it will be. Once you keep doing that, it's going to be a better, the gap's going to reduce. And I think right now it's too early to actually claim that McLaren is in deep trouble. I don't think they are. I think they are not where they want to be. Obviously 3 DNSs is not good, but at least I think there is a lot of scope for improvement. And I won't be surprised. Worst case scenario, I won't be surprised. By mid-season, they are the second fastest car behind McLaren, behind Mercedes, and they've leapfrogged Ferrari. I won't be surprised if this happens.
I'd be surprised if they're not ahead of Ferrari, like by kind of, at least by the end of the season. But yeah, I think halfway through, I wouldn't be surprised either. The thing is, I think in terms of chassis development, like you're right, that's the biggest thing for them is like they haven't brought an upgrade where the other teams have. And it means the other teams have pushed further on with stuff than they have. And even then, in terms of just some of the things they've done with their car, I think they're ahead of Mercedes. And I think once they bring upgrades to kind of extract more of that package, I wouldn't be surprised if they have a better chassis than even Mercedes by partway through this season. Like that wouldn't, the fact is, of all the teams on the grid, McLaren have by far and away the best aerodynamic team at the moment. In terms of chassis development, McLaren have the best team. And that's just a fact because they won the last 2 constructors, they won the last drivers' championship, and they did that by building a better chassis than Red Bull, who were the kings of the last regulation. So they have the best engineering team when it comes to the chassis. The big problem is going to be the engine and the facilities.
Yeah.
The problem is the engine. But the thing is that we need to remember is as well, like when it comes to the engine, they've still got the same technical ability that Mercedes have. So in the back of their car is the exact same engine that's in the back of the Mercedes, right? So one of 2 things will happen. Either it is just an understanding thing and we'll find out that like, you know, once they understand, they're basically leapfrogging Ferrari very quickly and that's that. Or it's a packaging issue that's causing reliability problems and they're going to have to repackage. But the thing is, that team, I think, is smart enough with the likes of Marshall and Pedromu and so on to go, okay, it's a packaging issue. So we're going to look at the Mercedes and we're going to figure out how they package it. And then we're going to start from there and develop better than they have. And that's where
deployment issues as well.
Right?
There's also the deployment issues.
Deployment, though, I think is just understanding now, right? That's why, if it's just an understanding issue, I could see them even leapfrogging Mercedes at some point. If it's a packaging issue, I think it'll take longer because they'll have to redevelop their concept, which could take next year as well. If it's just understanding and we find out that like once they understand the engine, their chassis is better than Mercedes, even Mercedes could be fucked at that point. Like that. That's how good McLaren could be.
Exactly, because according to Stella, he points the entire deficit to the understanding, and he said that if we were able to mimic what Mercedes was doing during their push laps, and if we had followed the same strategy, we would be gaining around 3 tenths. That's what he said, and if they were gaining 3 tenths, they would be around 3 or so tenths behind in qualifying
Which
alone.
they could catch with
And
upgrades, right?
yeah, and that is, again, this is something that's going to come with experience for them. Luckily, at least for the entire season, we are not looking at a scenario where there's going to be an upgraded power unit that's going to be introduced. That's not really something that's on the table for a benchmark power unit. Other teams can. 2% and 4% extra deficit if they have, then they can introduce upgraded parts to the power unit. So on that front, there is probably something that they can do. I still think just 2 races into the season, it's too early to pretty much put the shutters down on the reigning world champions. Way too early. But yeah, let's see what they...
Yeah.
I think also it will come down to how the drivers also adapt to it. That's also going to be a bit of a debate, because we might end up seeing at some point this season George Russell versus Oscar Piastri, or George Russell versus Lando, or versus Kimi, and how that battle ensues and what we see ultimately coming out of it. That's also going to be something worth watching.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to the other Mercedes powered car. Probably the biggest disappointment. So probably we don't trust in James Vowles anymore, right? Because this season, apparently I read a report that the Williams car, it was so poorly designed that there are moments on the track where the car is on 3 wheels instead of 4.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can. How do you rectify that?
Oh, I don't know. Like, there's just the problem is just that, like, this. I was kind of hoping that this wouldn't happen, because I think the problem is Williams was like making a good upward trajectory, but they're not a works team, and they're still a team that has a lot of deficits in terms of infrastructure and so on to fix.
Yeah.
And this is almost like worst case scenario, right? Like, where it found, I think, at least 3 or 4 other areas where they just weren't good enough, you know? And when you're building, like, that's fine when you're building on something that's already been developed over 3 years, you know, like, you can kind of get around some of that. But when you have to develop something from scratch without any inspiration on track to look at, like, it shows all your weaknesses. And it seems like they're having, exactly. And like, it seems like they're having a weakness in understanding, which with the engine, which you could almost forgive them for, because McLaren is as well. So it's kind of like, right, that's a Mercedes issue for the other teams. Although Alpine's kind of showing some teams up there on that, I think. But I think maybe Toto's happier to help Flav than anyone else. Then they're overweight because they didn't... It seems like they're overweight because they had to re-engineer a lot of their chassis, so they're even further overweight. And then it just seems aerodynamically the car is just not that strong, which it should be, given they had a huge head start on everyone else. So
yeah,
I think it's just some fundamental learnings that, like, they just need to upgrade the infrastructure and keep working on, like, building out their understanding of everything. And unfortunately, I think that's just going to take some more time. And my only concern is, like, how long is Sainz willing to stick around for that project, you know?
I think he'll be fine. I don't think he's going anywhere, because maybe could be. Yes, you're right. But the thing is, the kind of season he had in 2025 with Williams, where he's achieved, at least he's tasted success, isn't it? So that might make him sit back and, okay, I'll give you one more year, just for the sake of it, because James backed him as much as one could in 2025 in the first half of the season, and then Sainz repaid the faith. So currently they are in a situation where maybe things... But ideally what should happen is they should slowly start stripping away the weight, and once they do, they will gain performance, because there are 25 kgs overweight at this stage. So that's a lot. You're losing I think 6 or 7, 3 tenths are lost on... Okay, how many tenths are lost? In 2.5 kgs is what?
10 kgs is about 3.5 tenths.
Yeah, so 3.5 tons.
So if you wanted to even be like completely reasonable and say like, let's go to the lower end, 2.5 tenths, but 2.5 to 3.5, most of the team principals seem to think it's between 3 and 3.5. So
Yeah. So 20 gauges is 7 tenths. That's the gap that they are ultimately having. That's a lot. But if they're able to get, if ultimately they make up 7 tenths, they'll be leading the midfield right now. That's also a reality. So I think what Williams is going to go through is it's going to be a slow process of shedding the weight and slowly climbing the pecking order. But if by the end of the season they are still where they are right now, I think we will see heads roll. We might see Matt Harmon lose his position as a technical director, probably.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's probably going to be one of the things that might happen.
The thing is,
there.
there's a lot of low hanging fruit for that team as well if they can just focus on it. And I think James Vels is good at keeping everything together during that. So, like, I think he also probably James as well is lucky that he built himself a lot of faith and goodwill with what he did last season. Where I think, especially like the owners at Doralton and so on, will probably look at that and go, "Okay, this guy knows what he's doing." And if he goes in and says, yeah, turns out there's a lot more shit we need to fix that we didn't realize that this has exposed. And if he just goes with that attitude, I think they'll be like, well, this guy knows better than anyone so far, so let's keep going. You know.
Yep.
Plus, I'm sure the return on investment they've already made, they're kind of like, good.
Yeah, they'll be more than fine, isn't it?
150 million they bought it for. Jesus. If I swear to God, if I could go back to 2019 and show people how much he seems to be worth, I could raise 150 million. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, honestly, yes. Yeah.
They're worth
I could
so
raise
much
more
money.
than that, yeah.
Yeah, like
You could essentially put what $100-200 in Bitcoin in 2009 and you'd be able to own an F1 team by 2019.
I put money in Bitcoin in 2010, I think. No,
I
maybe
put
earlier.
some money in 2017. No, 2017, and I tripled it by 2019.
Mine's
and I was a
worse.
fucking idiot.
Mine's way
took it
worse,
out.
I can tell you.
What happened?
So I bought mine at the time when there wasn't like the hard drives and shit to back it up. Like, I printed it out on paper, the codes, and I lost the paper. And I bought $800 worth while drunk at 2 cents at 2 cents per Bitcoin. And I just forgot about it because it was 2 cents per Bitcoin. So I just forgot. It's worth like, I think in 2016, 2017, it would have been worth like $75 million.
Okay.
You can only
Yeah,
laugh
yeah,
about
yeah.
stupidity. There's no point.
Yeah.
I could cry, but there's no point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the figure, 75 million. Okay. I really didn't put that much money. I would put a few, I think 1,000 something. That's all. So it was essentially just throwing money kind of thing, because it was a bit of a fad at the time. And
Someone
we
told
didn't
me
really,
about it in 2009 and I bought it and I was like, fuck it, I'll put a week's wages into it or whatever it was. And like, didn't think much more of it other than that was a stupid decision. And then years later, I was like, kept telling people, it's going to crash. It's going to crash. You should get your money out. It's going to crash.
Yeah.
That was mainly because I just felt like a moron going, it's going to crash. It's gonna crash.
A lot of people have made a lot of money with that, but I would still suggest just take your money out from crypto at least at this point, because it's going to crash now, because everyone is putting money in different assets.
As the old saying goes, as soon as the taxi driver's talking about it, it's time to get out, you know?
Yep, 100%. Cool. I think let's talk about the Japanese Grand Prix now, coming up. What do you first of all, other than the super clipping and everything, and how it is going to suck the soul out of the way the car goes through the Esses and the 130R and the Degners? What's your view? What's your expectation from the race weekend?
Qualifying is going to be terrible. Absolutely shambolic. And then the race will be vastly entertaining for about 12 laps before it'll cool back into old Formula One, sans the fact that they can push at all. So yeah, I expect terrible qualifying, 12 laps of entertainment followed by terrible race.
There's one problem, by the way. How many overtaking spots are there?
That is true, yeah. Oh, and also this is going to be a massively Mercedes-dominated race. We're all expecting that.
No. No, the other way around, I think.
No.
The first and second sector is probably Ferrari. It's essentially the straights that are going to work in Mercedes' favor.
Yeah. But I think there's one sector where Ferrari will do well and two sectors where Mercedes will do well. So I think overall Mercedes are just going to destroy this.
No, first and second sector. So until the spoon, which is just at the end of the...
because I'm not taking into account the hairpin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, actually.
Yeah. So Ferrari might be closer. Because again, the Mercedes chassis is not bad. Ferrari might pull a bit, but overall, again, I do expect Mercedes to be the faster car.
So Mercedes should win by 15 seconds instead of 50 is what you're saying.
My concern is how are they going to overtake?
Yeah.
That's my concern. So if there is a scenario where either Leclerc or Lewis, they end up in the lead, how are you going to pull off overtakes?
Well, on the straight, at the back straight, right? Because they should have more just overwhelming deployment, I think.
That's one area, yeah. Maybe they can. I think the straights is the one. Maybe
if
the
it
spoon.
becomes just literally on the back straight up to R130 or 130R, sorry, if they just come up there and just overtake, it's like it's going to be incredibly boring if that's all it is, just passing the times. Which it could be.
Yeah. Let's see. Maybe we might see some innovative moves. That's what I'm hoping might happen. The shittiest thing is going to be how they navigate the Esses, because it's essentially single file. The cars are too big even now that
they're just going to be harvesting through there, aren't they?
Yeah.
Just super clipping the whole way through as much as they can.
Yep. Exactly. So essentially they will be driving the car within themselves.
And they're going to be almost off the throttle at 130R as well. It's going to be incredibly boring. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. So how do you expect the top four?
Thanks, Volkswagen. Anyway, sorry. The top four.
Yeah.
I would have said, so I think it's Mercedes still, because I think overall on the track they'll still be the fastest. And I think in qualifying they'll be the fastest. So I'm going to say Mercedes. Ferrari should be second. And annoyingly, this would have been one of those races where I would have said, this is one where Red Bull could actually be pretty good, in terms of their power. But I just don't think Red Bull is as good as I thought they were going to be. Annoyingly, because I've got a recorded video saying I thought Red Bull would be second that goes out later, that I already feel like an idiot for publishing. But it's recorded and I don't care. So I think probably... McLaren by all rights should be third, but McLaren haven't started a race with their two cars yet, so I'm going to say McLaren fourth. I'm going to say Red Bull third. So
if we have to include the reliability factor into it, I think even I would be worried about McLaren, but I think what we are going to see is we are going to see the top three teams being much closer.
Yeah.
In terms of the gap in qualifying. And we might see that play out a bit in the race as well. I think this was the race where McLaren will be a factor, at least for a while.
If McLaren start the race, you think they're going to beat Red Bull?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay. Yeah.
If McLaren starts the race, then ultimately we'll see the top three teams maybe separate themselves from the rest of the grid. Because I am still not sure if Max can make a start. He's yet to do that in three attempts.
That's true, yeah. Well, I think Verstappen fans have a lot to apologise for. Poor Lando.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think this is the entire, probably the dumbest way the F1 discourse works. Because last year you could have asked a lot of F1 fans and they would claim that Max would win in a Haas or a Sauber or anything.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of them did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not only them, a lot of the people working in the media did, and I was blowing my head because that should not be. It didn't make any sense for any of the people in the media to come out and say such nonsense, but they did.
Anyone who watches Formula One who has an ounce of intelligence should have known that.
They should not have been saying that.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think I always forget there's a lot of morons out there. So
a lot of people are just trying to make news as well, which is something I'm starting to realize.
They just But the problem is that there's a lot of people who say stuff like that, like, oh yeah, I'm just saying it for clicks. But they start to believe it, or they do believe it. And then when you actually argue with them about it, they go, no, he would though. You're like, you're not this stupid, are you? Like, come on. Like,
I know who you're talking about, but
I'm
yeah.
talking about several people.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. By the way, Villeneuve also did the same thing, if you remember. So in the press conference, when I asked him that, okay, do you think there's a scenario that Max ends up at, in case anyone has not watched it, I'll share the link in this, in the video as well. So there are a couple of questions I asked Jacques Villeneuve in the press conference. The first was, do you think there's a possibility that Max could move to Mercedes? And according to Villeneuve, the whole thing was, what was the word he used? Vindication or something. I'm forgetting. Essentially, what he said that Max and Toto colluded to push Horner out of Red Bull. Vindication. I'm forgetting that particular word he used. Anyways, so he said that both of them were being pushed off. And then I asked, okay, fine, that is something that happened. Why was George Russell's... Yeah. So then I asked, why was George Russell's contract being delayed even after Horner had been fired? And Jack waited for a couple of minutes and he said, yeah, that was weird. Yeah, it was weird. I don't know. It was a bit weird, yes. That's how the conversation ended. I fucking hate it. I don't have the clip. But yeah. I might ask.
Yeah.
So yeah, this happened and it's very common now. A lot of people, they don't construct a complete thought in terms of you don't cancel out the things that are going to affect your overall conclusion.
The problem is people either do one of two things, which is they think things out and say them without talking to anyone about them, so they never have anyone push back on them. And then what they do is when people do push back, they either get into the situation of going, oh yeah, that is true, I should look into that, or I should learn that. Instead of that, they go, I'm just not talking to that person anymore. That person's an idiot and I'm only going to talk to the people who agree with me. And unfortunately, social media loves the second part. It loves to just show you people who agree with you. So,
yeah.
And then make anyone else out to be an idiot, so.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the world we live in where Max can win in a Haas, apparently. Anyway, yeah.
He could. Now he cannot adapt to the car, apparently. That's the new paradigm that
just
we are
like
living
Hamilton,
in.
he's not adaptable then. So Verstappen fans are saying he's not that great of a driver, basically. Brilliant.
No, Verstappen fans are not saying that he's not adaptable. You have the other... It's essentially the Formula One works in extremes, right? So last year we had the Verstappen fans claiming that Max could win in a Haas. This year we have Hamilton and Russell fans claiming that Max is not the best driver in the world. Like, on what basis are both those claims made? But
yeah. I would love to go back and find all the people who, when I said it's 90% the car, 10% the driver in F1 always, who were like, yeah, but with Max it's like closer to 70-30. I really want to go back now and be like, by the way, so 30% of those bad starts are Max's fault?
Yep.
Because it's like, no, it's clearly
apparently... Yeah, that's the whole thing, right? Because last year I was apparently Lando Norris fan. This year I'm a Max Verstappen fan. Or maybe I just call out morons.
Oh, yeah. Well, when I got it, when I was like, look, Lando clearly is having troubles with the car because Oscar as well was having some bad starts and it's clearly the car in certain things.
Yeah.
We're like, no, it's just Lando. He's just terrible at starts. And it's like, well, Oscar's clearly not that good then either. And it's like, now what are they going to say? It's just a typical.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, sports is always the same way,
Yeah. And politics, apparently. So, predicting top 3.
I still think Mercedes are going to run away with this one. I really do. I hate.
Which one?
So I'm going to be super pessimistic, and I'm going to say it's going to be George, Antonelli, Leclerc. And I think honestly, Antonelli is very impressive. I think he's going to get better, but I think realistically, without the issues that George was having with the car last week or 2 weeks ago, I think George would have won the race anyway. I still don't think Antonelli is like properly there yet. Still impressive, but not properly there. So I think George wins overall. And then I think Leclerc was at 2 bad tracks. I think of the 2 Ferraris, Leclerc is still the better driver. And I think at a track like this, Leclerc wins hands down. So I think, unfortunately, it's probably going to be 2x2 for the top 4. I think Hamilton will be 4th. And I think Hamilton will be close 4th, but I don't think he'll be able to beat Charles here. So
yeah. Okay. So I think Okay, let's put a wild one out there then. I think Kimi wins.
Colapinto.
Ja-
Anyway.
No, I have to keep up the charade now.
Oh, yeah, I forgot, yeah.
Keep an eye out for the driver ratings now.
I'm going to start doing my own driver ratings and put Colapinto as 10 out of 10 to get all of the Argentinian fans. So
Yeah, let's have both of them, and then ultimately we'll bring them on our pod.
yeah. Good idea.
10,000 subscribers right at the damn spot. Yeah. Anyway, so I think Kimi Antonelli wins. George Russell is second. I think Lando Norris is third. And Lewis and Leclerc crash into each other.
Oh,
Let's have some fun because that would make the next 4 weeks worth it. If both of them crash and it's a racing incident, both the fan bases are going to eat each other up. So
that's a crazy prediction as well, because that means the McLaren start and finish the race. So
that's also true.
Yeah.
That's also true. Which hasn't happened 75% of the time this season.
Yeah.
Fuck.
is Lando the only
That's the
one who's
craziest.
finished one race so far in Australia, right?
Yep. He was.
Oh, yeah, and he
fifth,
finished
if
ahead
I'm-
of Max, right? Fifth.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Max is washed now, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They also finished the sprint, so that was a good thing at least.
That's true. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. We jump to questions, I guess?
Yep. We have
Flippy.
5 of them. Let's go through them.
What
quickly.
track could benefit the most this year from the new regulations? Could Monaco be a hidden chaotic gem? Yes, it
He's right.
could. It's going to be incredible. I'm so excited for Monaco. Genuinely, this might be the year that I actually decide maybe I'll take a holiday and try and get some Monaco tickets.
Monaco of all places. Jeez.
Yeah.
Why would you
It's
go
close
there?
in fairness, it's close enough to my home, so it's only
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I could
that
go
way
and
you
visit the
can.
parents and I've also I've got
that
family
was
in
good.
Switzerland with a new kid, so it could be an excuse to like pop by there as well. So I could make a trip of it. I did tell the wife that I would spend 4 weeks in Italy this year, so it could be an excuse to just go do that. Because
Yeah.
the
That
wife
way would
thinks
be good.
Mexico's dangerous for some reason. Who gave her that idea? But anyway, crazy. Women, huh? Just stay in the kitchen and stop watching the news. Anyway, yeah. I think Monaco could be a hidden gem this year. Do you think so?
Yeah.
Or
He's right.
Yeah.
He's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the whole super clipping and all that, you're not going to see that much of it because there are anyways too many braking zones, so you'll be able to regenerate anyways. So
they're
you'll be
only at
fine.
100% throttle for like 2% of the race or something anyway, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like a tiny
Precisely. That's why. And I don't necessarily know how good the race is going to be because the cars are still fat, but
yeah.
we might see some positive racing. Maybe there's a scope of
Yeah.
it at least. Yeah. Okay. Central 99.1. Why would Mercedes want Max when you have Russell, who is very close, and young Antonelli, who can just be as good as Max in the future? Max and his management can also be the upside isn't there really. Mostly agree with you. We also
headache. Yeah.
He's
this
right.
guy is
He's
clearly a
100%
fan
right.
of the podcast because he just said what we
Yeah.
said earlier. Yeah.
yeah.
Very
We kind
nice.
of touched on all things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Red Robin 1122. Do you guys think we will re-add 2 races? I think we can. I
Yeah.
won't be surprised if we have the 2 races in December.
Well, you think they'll re-add the 2 races later on in the season?
They are not cancelled, by the way. They're postponed.
Oh, I thought they were cancelled. So they specifically said postponed.
Yeah.
Ah.
I wouldn't mind
Yeah.
them adding those 2 races to be.
No. I think honestly, good tracks as well to see the cars. Well, Saudi Arabia,
Not
maybe
Jeddah.
not so much for these cars.
Please no.
Unless you, yeah, it's just gonna
I'd
be
rather have 2
70%.
Bahrains in that case.
Yeah,
one in
yeah.
the
But
new, one in the
Bahrain could
different
be pretty good.
layout.
You
Yeah.
know, because it's got some good overtaking spots and so on. So
It's an open
I don't
track,
think they
right?
will
So
though. I think
they will.
wouldn't forgotten that. You think so?
I think they will. Money?
Yeah. Well, that's true. It's not,
They will need
put
money for
troops on the ground.
to be frank, after the whole nonsense that the great leader has pulled together. Now they will need money, right? They have to bring back tourism and everything, and they're going to pump a lot of money into it.
That's it. Wouldn't be surprising, especially Saudi Arabia, who would want to have kind of yeah maybe
We might see
Maybe.
that.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Go for it.
Ahmad Fabli says, do you guys think Horner will try to go to Audi? I guess we've already covered this, but just his
Yeah.
point is, I mean, they could do the very same thing Toto did, which is taking 33% stakes. I swear to God, we've got like some of the best fans here.
Yeah.
They've all the
Knowledgeable,
inside scoops.
right?
Yeah. We're not getting someone here going, do you think Max will win the championship in a Haas? I really think it could be something like this: 33% Horner in his backers, 33% Audi, 33% Qatar, 1% minority shareholders. Yeah, I think even the stake there makes sense because Qatar own 33% today.
25%.
25.
They own 25% right now.
I knew they owned some of it, but I didn't think it was that much.
Is it the Qatar sovereign fund, or is it one of the sovereign funds own 25% of the stake? I don't know which country it is, but one of them does. Okay, Nelson Piquet Jr. Sorry, what?
I wish I had a sovereign fund.
Yeah.
My dad's a truck driver, and you don't get many sovereign funds driving trucks, unfortunately. So
Nelson Piquet Jr. Has F1 taken any stance on the current conflicts going on in the Middle East? Have they given a reason for the cancellation of the Middle East races? Or so far it seems they have positioned themselves on the side of America. Okay, Nelson, I'll put it in this way. F1 is owned by Liberty Media. Liberty Media is essentially one of the donors of Donald Trump. So I think that should tell you everything.
Yeah, I mean, well, maybe, but also remember that like basically every rich person saw the writing on the wall and backed him anyway in that election. Everyone coming up to that election was like, I don't think this Kamala woman's going to win. She seems a bit nuts. And they all went, we better give him some money quick. So
yeah, but it's a triple. Liberty Media is essentially Chase Carey and Co are. Yeah.
At least they don't do anything crazy like back, authoritarian regimes in the Middle East. So that's good.
Not at all.
At least F1's not taking money from cigarettes anymore, just from people who kill people in Turkish embassies. Saudi Arabia, come fund us anytime soon.
On that bombshell.
I was just trying to find 30% is what they own, approximately. I was just trying to find 30%. Yeah.
Qatar?
Yeah, Qatar. Yeah.
Okay.
So you were right on that. Yeah, I think that would be an interesting one. What was the other one there? Stance on Middle East. They're not going to take a stance on the Middle East.
Okay, let's put it like this. The stance that was initially taken, it was against Russia, and that's a stance you can take because it resonates with the political situation that's
the entire world took that stake as well, and you weren't going to be able to run a race there, so they had nothing to lose by taking that stance, basically.
Yeah,
that's the simple fact of it. Like if you look at, was it the Turkish Grand Prix or Hungarian Grand Prix? I can't remember which one it was, where the guys Seb tried to show up with the LGBT t-shirts or whatever, and they went nuts about it. And it's like they'll take a stance there because it directly affects their relationship, but with Russia it was super easy to just go whatever. And like if they're going to go out about that or give out about that, then like the amount of money that is in F1 from the Saudi funds and from UAE and all these different places
from America,
and Bahrain, like Bahrain own or a good chunk of McLaren. Saudi Arabia owns a good chunk of Aston Martin. Qatar owns a good chunk of Audi, as we've just said.
Audi.
Like, even if they wanted to themselves say things about the Middle East, the teams would tell them to shut up. So they're not going to say a word, So
25% of the calendar is, I think, Middle East. There's 3 races in America, which is the perpetrator of the war. That's 6 races out of 24, and the other races are in countries that have actually come out in support of the war. So if you are looking at morals and ethics, the thing is, if you're looking at morals in Formula One, it's the wrong place to look at.
Look,
on a very sour note, I guess, but it's not the place to look at.
This is a sport that went from cigarette sponsorships to Bitcoin sponsorship. Like, what was it? FBX was on the Mercedes for a while. FTX, that's the one that was on the Mercedes.
Just look at it right now. Look, the AI bubble is going to burst, and half of the teams on the current grid are basically they're swimming in money from the AI companies, and that's just what Formula One is. You always take money from all these nonsensical, shady sources, and then move on.
It could
that's
be worse.
Just it.
It could be worse. We could be talking about certain themed Nazi
We could be IndyCar, by the way. We could be IndyCar having the Freedom Grand Prix in fucking White House. So at least we're not doing that.
Hey. That looks like a great race, and I'm definitely going to that. So relax.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Yeah.
On that bombshell,
Oh.
take care,
I
guys.
don't
Bye
think, I
bye.
don't
Have
think
a
we
good
should say
one.
bombshell anymore, given the state of the world.
Why?
Right.
Okay. Oh God. Yeah.
And on that genocide, it's time to end. Bye, everybody.